Cool, everybody. Thank you so much for listening in. This is Jeff Wellstead. I am the founder of Big Bear Partners, and Big Bear is focused on primarily as an HR consultancy initially for startups and scale-up companies, and kind of building out, their entire kind of like people strategy from ground up, but has now since morphed and pivoted toward the AI realm, because I have always ever been following HR technologies, but I've always been fascinated by beautiful technologies that appear and feel seamless and magical, in that you can talk to them, either type things in or actually talk to them on your phone or whatever the case, and they start to kick out some incredible wisdom, and insight and utility, which is awesome. And God knows HR as a function could use all of that. There's a lot of concern in the workplace these days relative to HR, and its functionality, and what are we meant to be doing with this AI tech? What does it all mean? Is it going to take my job? And so my quick answer, and I'll have my friend Ethan speak to this shortly here too, but my quick answer to that is only if you don't ride the wave versus being stood on the beach and watching the wave come at you. And what I mean by that is get comfortable with the notions around AI and its capabilities, what it can automate, what it can take care of, and take away from you on a day-to-day basis. I've had a 35-year career in human resources. First half spent in and around New York City with big multinational investment banks and consultancies and some pharma and some tech, and then basically 20 years over here in the UK, where I've been primarily working with hypergrowth tech and biotech startups and scale ups. And that's always been loads of fun because you get to build the tech stack from scratch. And the tech stacks these days are getting far more interesting than what they used to be 10 years ago. And now, of course, this past year, it has just been an explosion of AI and everything. And it's fun and it's fascinating. And what's cool is it's got incredible utility, and will take away from you the things that you abhor: the difficulty, the administration, the structuring, the pictures, the layouts, all the things that we have to do as HR people, excuse me, to kind of appear like we've got everything going on. In my never-ending effort to reach out and plug into exciting people who are doing exciting things in this space, I bumped into our dear friend Ethan Webb, who's kindly decided or allowed me to kind of spend some time with him on a webinar today. And Ethan, welcome. It's really good to see you.
Yeah, happy
Appreciate
to
it.
be here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you're talking to us from sunny, very snowy Utah. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah, we just got like 4 or 5 inches last night. So everyone in the
Nice.
States out hitting the slopes, but we're
Beautiful.
we're here in the office grinding, of course.
As you do with
Yeah.
startup. So look, I've yammered on too long. What I want to do is talk about this exciting company that you're putting together, and I want to kind of talk about your journey, if you will, the sort of origin story in terms of what got you guys thinking about building the thing that you built. And then I would love for you to actually show us a little bit, if that's okay with you, as to what the tool can do. I've had a play today, and I'll talk about my own experience with that, and I think the journey that a lot of users, have probably been on in coming to you. And I'm happy to report that it was blissful, it was exciting, and I kind of left it feeling like that's got magic in it. That's got magic. It's lovely. So with that, can you do me a favor? Just give us a bit of background about who you are, and a little bit about your company and your origin story.
Yeah, I can start maybe with an overview of where Mindsmith sits in kind of the HR umbrella. HR tech is a pretty wide
Yeah,
industry. So
it is.
we sit really in the learning sphere. So learning and development is really where we shine. Particularly e-learning. So like asynchronous types of learning, where the learner just kind of goes through the learning experience on their own. So learning experiences that can really be scaled within an organization. So e-learning is just much more easily scaled, obviously, than like live presentation or coaching or mentoring. So
And we should, by the way, before we go any further, we should probably introduce the fact the name of the company is Mindsmith. Is that right?
yeah,
Okay, cool.
Mindsmith. Yep.
Good, good. And you're one
Yeah.
of the founders, is that right?
Yep. Yep. So it's myself and Zach. We're the two co-founders.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Mindsmith, we sit in the e-learning space. You can kind of think of like the e-learning space is being divided into two main categories. You have your learning management systems, which are for the logistics, the distribution of learning. And then you have what's called authoring tools, and that's really where we sit. So that's where the e-learning generally is built and produced, and then it's ported into the LMS via, various standards in the industry, primarily a standard called SCORM. So we sit in the authoring tools industry. Another helpful thing about like kind of where Mindsmith is positioned, and even within the authoring tools industry, is in e-learning you have off-the-shelf content that's generally like pretty generic, and I would say at this point fairly commoditized. So like if you just want to look up like how do you do sales, like you can
Yeah.
just find YouTube videos on how to do sales, or there's tons of LinkedIn Learning, or you can get a Udemy package or whatever. But on the other side, you also have custom content. So content that is highly contextual and specific to an organization. So their procedures, their policies, their culture, all that stuff has to be made custom to the organization. And that's where Mindsmith really shines, is in the custom content. I mean, we do have people who use Mindsmith to produce, generic content as well, but I would say our biggest value add is in custom content. And currently, creating custom content is really, really time intensive and expensive.
Yeah.
So, yeah, on average, it takes 200 man hours to produce an hour of e-learning, which is just mind-boggling. Like when I first like was introduced to the e-learning industry, I was like, why is it so expensive? Like if you hire an agency, like an e-learning module is like 10 to 20, sometimes 20 plus $1,000 to
Wow.
produce an hour of e-learning content. Yeah, so just incredibly expensive for organizations to produce this custom content. So yeah, that's kind of where Mindsmith is situated in the the larger learning ecosystem. I
And
can tell you a
what's
little bit.
exciting about that, if I could interrupt real quick, is, in all
Yeah.
the companies that I typically worked with, which typically started off being 30 to 50 people, right, in a very small room, usually. But they were full of like super bright techie engineers, software developers, and these kinds of people, all of whom were working on a particular aspect of the thing that we were building. Um, and weirdly, even though they sat in close proximity to each other, they didn't always ever know what each other were up to. And there were always ever kind of aspects of whatever it was they were building, which was typically quite complex, whereby there would be architectures, there'd be frameworks, there would be, computer languages and things of that nature being utilized. And the folks in the set of desks next door to them wouldn't necessarily have a clue, but kind of needed to know what was going on with it. And so they'd always ever kind of like try to string together like a Loom video. You know what I mean? They just like,
Mhm.
throw up a screenshot and kind of like, talk to a Zoom camera or something similar and just kind of do a quick Loom video and going, kind of thing. No structure to it, nothing fancy. It wasn't pretty. And God knows how they absorbed it, or did they? I don't know. But the self-authoring thing is super important, and I think will become ever more important, especially to companies that deal with any kind of technology whatsoever, and that's most companies, um, whereby you're going to have to kind of explain to people in cross-functional teams what it is you're up to and why that matters, and then importantly, how that kind of integrates back with the bigger picture. You know what I mean? And so to do this well, to do this right is, to your point, really essential, because you have to get these bits consumed by people, attached to some level of kind of, mental scaffolding. So then it starts to make sense to them and they can start to pull from these elements as they're doing their work, and hopefully have a much more kind of synchronous experience at work, to create something better, faster, hopefully less expensively. that kind of a thing. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of like point out the fact that self-authoring is like, it's like a holy grail in L&D I've been looking for a long time. And I'm so happy to talk to you about this.
Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting. We do talk a lot about like the economics of e-learning, like because it's so expensive, like the organization has to be incredibly strategic about like what gets produced and when it gets produced. But when it becomes a lot cheaper and easier to produce like highly interactive, highly engaging e-learning content, suddenly all of this learning that's been done kind of ad hoc and poorly, right? Like you're describing, like maybe it's a like 30-minute screen recording of someone like walking through something and that's just like not engaging or interesting. Or maybe it's like a PowerPoint presentation that someone has just like gone through and recorded themselves talking through, which also is not engaging or interesting. Like suddenly all these like kind of learning materials that were created ad hoc can be converted into engaging, beautiful, dynamic e-learning and can be scaled and integrated into a lot of the existing structure within an organization. So, and that's an aspect of Mindsmith that I guess I haven't talked about, which is also that because we were built from the ground up, we are very intuitive and very easy to use. So even though our primary demographic, the people who we're like selling to are learning organizations and instructional designers, so people who spend their full-time job like designing e-learning content,
Mm.
we also end up getting used often by like subject matter experts or just a manager who needs to produce some sort of, e-learning content for his department. So, yeah, it's not kind of our primary use case, but you're right that the dynamics of like when e-learning gets produced and how it gets produced are changing with artificial intelligence, and Mindsmith can be a really cool piece of that puzzle and of that change. Yeah,
Yeah,
for
I'll
sure.
tell you what, I mean, and I'll talk a little bit about my own journey and experience in trying to kind of self-author, training that I was then wanting to pass on to the rest of the world. Always ever, I mean, deathly afraid and embarrassed about, how it was I was structuring it. I'd taken courses, on Coursera and Udemy and all these other kind of, beautiful LMS systems. And and the stuff was brilliant. You know what I mean? It was so beautifully composed, and it had it was multimodal. So you had like sort of like a moving slideshow, and then a professor would pop up, and then questions would appear down behind the professor. There'd be like a whole transcript underneath. You could stop and start at any time. You could highlight stuff, save stuff, do all this stuff. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that ever. So I might as well give it up. But meanwhile, all these people are crushing it on YouTube. You know what I mean? Just throwing their faces out there and being like, and
Sure.
here's a slide, and here's this, and here's that. And I'm like, why can't I be prolific like these people? And so it was hard. And I was always so horribly self-conscious that whatever I produced would be rubbish. People would look at it and be like, that's not useful. And I didn't learn anything. That's like fault number one. Fault number two, if God forbid I decided to charge for anything like that, you know what I mean, to create a bit of passive income or something, I felt like I was robbing people, of a good solid thing. But anyway, so tell me more about how it is you guys put this together.
Yeah, yeah, just to speak to that point really quick, you're
Yeah.
right that a lot of people experience a lot of insecurity in designing learning content. And there's also this like fear of the blank page, I think. So just like getting started is like such a huge barrier for a lot of people. And using AI to kind of structure and build and kind of help you, create this content can really be a powerful springboard for you as maybe someone who doesn't have experience with like pedagogical frameworks,
Right.
or
Exactly.
some of the really complicated softwares that are out there. Um, like other authoring tools take hundreds of hours of tutorial to learn how to use, whereas in Mindsmith you can pick it up and start using very quickly. So
Yep.
yeah, just that's another, yeah, really important pain in the learning industry. Is this fear of starting and this fear of failure and things. So
Yeah.
and we can't keep you from failure, but we can definitely help you like produce beautiful content. But yeah, I can
You
talk a
sounded
little
like
bit
half my
about.
teachers just then.
We'll do our best. I mean, we're not, yeah, Superman over here, but we'll do what we
Right.
can. Um,
Cool.
but yeah, I can talk about kind of our origins. So it's always hard to like determine where to start in the story.
Right.
Um, I guess I could start with actually in 2020 is kind of like the origin. My co-founder Zach, he was working with a nonprofit teaching English classes in person. So every week he would go to a building and he would teach these classes. But like very quickly in 2020, he realized that that wasn't an option anymore, right? So, what he did is, COVID hit, obviously. I didn't say that explicitly, but COVID hit, so he couldn't meet in person. So what he did is he took the curriculum from the organization he was teaching with and turned it into these super basic e-learning modules and just like sent them out to the people he was teaching. And it just exploded. Like they were super stoked to kind of work on this asynchronously in their own time, and he could scale within his area. So it really blew up in the area of people taking these lessons, being engaged, enjoying it. So the organization he was teaching with hired him to push the program worldwide. So it's been completed by, 20,000 plus students. And he's sort of been leading this e-learning initiative, or had been until Mindsmith, um, which kind of being really immersed in the e-learning industry gave him a lot of really cool insights into what was going on. So there were a few key insights that Mindsmith is sort of based on. The first is that, and I've kind of alluded to this before, but building content is really expensive. So it's kind of this long process of like an instructional designer who's not an expert meeting with a subject matter expert and them trying to like determine how to structure a lesson, and then the instructional designer having to synthesize all this information on things that they're not an expert on and create this lesson. So it's this really long back and forth between the two parties who have a hard time communicating. So we realized that that process was really long, really clunky. We also realized that the e-learning industry, or at least the authoring tools industry, hasn't been meaningfully disrupted in 20 years, 20 plus years. So the biggest players are like legacy software companies that were established in 2003, and frankly, their products look like it. They
Yeah.
take tons of tutorial to learn how to use. They become really unwieldy. There are a lot of technologies that have changed, and the world has changed, but they haven't adapted to these changes in technology. So we saw that there was kind of a prime opportunity to disrupt the e-learning industry in a meaningful way through building a next generation authoring tool. And kind of our foot in the door to that is, let's incorporate AI to make like creating content easier, faster, and
Yeah.
better. So
Yeah, why not?
that's
I
kind
mean,
of
that's really kind of what generative AI was kind of built to do anyway, right? It was this notion of large language models that act as probability machines that basically put words together in the most
right.
intelligent way, possible, sometimes arguably, a lot of times better than I can do it anyway. I'm not going to speak for you. Um, but I think that's what you see when you play, with your tool is the ease of taking um, a whole bunch of documentation that is, kind of partially linked to each other. So that's, and I'll explain my story in a little bit after you kind of do your take on it. But Mindsmith was fascinating because it said, here, upload any content, right? Give it to us in any format. It doesn't need to be structured necessarily, but it broadly has to be what it is you want to talk about. Or send us a website. Or, and then on and on and on. It just gave me loads of options. And I was like, oh, I know. I've got a repository of websites that I strung together in terms of stuff I shared toward the end of last year into this year. And that largely is kind of like formulating kind of the basis for my new pivot, this focus on AI. I'll put a bunch of those in there and let's just see how the system copes with it, right? And I was shocked. I was shocked at how intelligent it took 5 very, very disparately different articles that vaguely had similar themes, AI and HR, and actually put them into a cogent and coherent flow of learning and provided an outline and everything, all with, and I'm not making this up, I got the outline in less than a minute, and I basically got the entire presentation and course with quizzes built into it and so forth, literally in the space of probably a minute and a half. And it was some pretty heady stuff, right? I was thinking, God, if I had to read through those 5 articles and try to make sense of them, and then sit down with a course, curriculum developer and go through, as you call it, the pedagogy. I don't even know what the hell a pedagogy is, but I'm guessing it's some form of a structure and a discipline around how to order information, right? So that we can learn it.
Yeah.
Wasn't going to happen, man. It would not happen for like 6 months. I would just sit on it, procrastinate, and be like, that's a rainy day problem.
Right.
Kind of thing. And literally in the space of 5 minutes, I literally was sat and going and scrolling through an online learning course that probably would take about 20 minutes to do. But anyway, I just thought I'd lob that in there.
Yeah, that's exactly what Mindsmith was intended to do. It's like, you're right, AI is really good at structuring unstructured things. Like, that's what it was built for. So, yeah, sometimes people will upload super unstructured material, and just like you're saying, it will do a really good job of weaving it together into a consistent, coherent e-learning lesson. So, yeah, I mean, more than often, I would say our users are uploading like their standard operating procedure for their company. So it's like a very structured document. And
Yeah.
then the AI does a really good job of like building out engaging aspects beyond that. Like
Yeah.
it does a good job of building interactive elements, or, you can say teach how to operate a cash register using a conversation between an employee and a customer or something like that. And so it can kind of build on a lot of the structure that already exists to make it more engaging and interesting.
And that's the magic bit, right? I mean, that I did not expect. I just expected it to kind of read it through, structure it, and just regurgitate,
Right.
the details. And it didn't. It actually took it to sort of a next level. And I thought, this thing's better than me. And I'm quite happy about it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Cool. So do you want to hop into a demo now, or
Yeah,
was there
man.
another
Yeah, show
point you
us show
wanted
us how
to?
this thing works. I'm sure everybody's appetites are thoroughly whetted at the stage and they're dying to see what this is all about.
Okay, cool. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, indeed.
Awesome. Yeah, so this is like Mindsmith when you log in, just our dashboard. You can see like everything is simple and easy to use. Like, you have your folders, you have your loose lessons, you can star stuff to hop in on the side. We do have an entire like collaboration tier. We call it our teams tier. So you can see I have my team here. I have my projects that are shared within everyone in my organization. I can manage members. I can manage branding. I can save themes, themes, default logos, all that
Oh,
stuff. So yeah, just some really cool basic like logistic stuff here in Mindsmith. But the coolest stuff, yeah, we'll actually generate a lesson together. That'll be more fun.
yeah.
We probably should have discussed what our topic will be before, but this will be
That's a
fun. We
good
can
point.
do
Let's
it
make
in
something
real
up.
time.
Let's see. How about something relatable to Utah in the current weather that you're having at the moment? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, sure. We can do how to ski in powder snow.
There you go.
Cool. Yeah, so that's the topic we chose. Before I hop into this, though, the full flow, it's probably worth mentioning that we do have 3 different versions of the generator right now, or 3 different modes of the generator. So we
Okay.
have a topic, so teach a topic. We have convert a document, and an instructions mode. So instructions and topic are really similar. The biggest difference between them is that instructions has this field that allows you to provide some structural guidance to the AI. So it's quite a bit more versatile.
Okay.
So I could say something like, I want quizzing throughout the lesson to check understanding. Or I could say, I only want a quiz at the end of the lesson. Or I
Okay.
could
So the,
say
the
like,
instructions you're giving basically to Mindsmith and saying, this is the way I want you to kind of put this together.
Exactly. Yeah. So in a structural sense, yeah.
Got it.
So, or I could say like I want a deep dive section in the middle and then a challenge section that encourages the learner to go outside of the e-learning module. Something like that. Like you can provide a lot more guidance here. It's more versatile. It is a little experimental. The idea is that instructions will replace teach a topic here in the next month or so.
Okay.
But like I said, super similar. The biggest difference between these two and convert a document, though, is how they treat the documents that you upload. So convert a document says, I have a document and I really want to just convert it directly into a lesson. So it'll follow the flow of the document really well. It'll hit the main ideas of the document. It will determine what the overall theme of the document is, and it'll create this lesson. You can provide some like kind of macro guidance to the AI in terms of audience and narrative style and that stuff,
Okay.
but it's not quite the biggest drawback of that is that it's not as controllable. So I can't fine tune an outline. I can't tell it what the topic is because the AI is doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. But it is much more strict to the document than the other two. So if you really like are trying to convert a document directly, then that's usually the mode you'll use. Teach a topic and instructions, on the other hand, use the document more as context or source material for the AI. So it's more so like, let's put you in the driver's seat. You tell us what your vision for this lesson is, and then
Mhm.
we'll use the document to support whatever matches your vision. So
Gotcha.
maybe there are things beyond the document that the AI will use to support your vision, or maybe it'll only pull from certain parts of the document to support your vision. So that kind of creates a sort of relationship where you as the learning designer are sort of the architect of the lesson. So
Got it.
some of the subtle nuances of dealing with the generator here.
That's important though, right? Because otherwise, that's the thing about generative AI. It's not so magic that it can actually read your mind and
Right.
come back with and kind of like sort your brain out and then kind of suck from that and throw it on a screen and make perfect sense out of it. You have to give it a context. You have to give it some level of structure in terms of telling it what to do, the prompt mechanism, if you will, right? And that typically has to do with, what is the subject? What is the context within which you want to talk about this subject? Talk to me about the tone of voice you want, and talk to me about how you want it delivered. And I'll go and do all the rest, kind of thing. So, and if you do that well, typically my experience anyway has been that it comes out way better than kind of just, blowing past those elements.
Yeah, exactly. And we also saw like there are what we saw was two different categories of use cases for Mindsmith. So the one was I'm an instructional designer and I want all of this control and tweaking and I want to be the architect. And then we also saw the use case of I just want to convert my PowerPoint into a lesson. So in that case, upload your PowerPoint here and it'll be really strict to your content. So yeah, just like you were describing.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so we can walk through a topic today. So, topic we decided on how to ski and powder snow. Next thing I would do is add my audience or my style guide. I could say this is for a beginning skier in Utah. We just got 5 inches of snow. And maybe I want to say like focus on example scenarios or something like that. So,
Okay.
yeah, tons of like guidance I could give here. So I could get a lot more specific. I could give like learning objectives. That's a really popular one amongst our instructional designers.
Mhm.
But I could also, add more guidance for writing style. You can actually, if you have the teams, you can save your style guides.
All
So you can
right.
kind of save the different audiences. Yeah. So if you want to
That's
like
clever.
or if you have a certain tone that you want to use when teaching certain subjects. So maybe I'm doing a DEI training and I want to really focus on inclusivity and sensitivity. I could do that.
Nice.
So yeah, different audiences and things like that. You can really have a lot of power here. Sometimes people will have writing style guides already that are like pages long that they'll upload here.
Wow.
Like words that you can use, words you can't use, how to treat certain topics, things like that.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, so this is kind of macro guidance that gets applied to every part of the lesson as it's generating. So
Okay.
yeah, that's audience and style guide. Next thing I would do is upload my sources. So you mentioned a lot of the different mediums, PowerPoint, PDF, Word document. You can see you
Yeah,
can also link to websites, which I think you did in your
I
lesson
did.
generation. Yeah, or you can throw in text directly if you'd like to, just copy and paste. But yeah, really powerful here. You can do multiple documents. We do limit it to 15,000 words, so it's about a chapter of a book.
Okay.
But yeah, it can be, you can upload a lot of content here to guide the AI.
Well, that made sense because I uploaded like, I don't know, I think 5 different websites. Each one of them easily could have been articles that were 3 to 5 pages long. So I was, and then at some point it was like, you can't do that anymore. Stop it. I was like, oh, okay. I broke it.
Yeah, yeah, we don't want the AI. So we do a lot in the background to make sure the AI stays focused. But you know, it can get to the point if it's like a whole book, then it's like, oh, there's a lot of stuff on this topic you're trying to teach, and it just kind of gets all jumbled. So we really
Makes
want
sense.
to have things streamlined and directed. So,
Sure.
but 15,000 words hopefully is enough for most
Yeah, you
for
would
most
hope. Yeah,
cases.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's audience style guide and sources. Next thing I would do is we have some more advanced features here, so you can make it a little longer if you'd like. Maybe I want to do 6 sections instead of 5. We have some different modes. So interactive will generate some other interactive cards like flashcards and accordions.
Cool.
And then you can control the different types of images. So if you want to do full Creative Commons, you can do that, or all images. We're actually adding Dolly 3 here in the next week or so. That'll be really cool. So you can pull AI generated images instead of images from the web. But
Nice.
anyway, yeah, next thing I recommend to people is that they fine tune an outline. And fine tuning the outline is really cool because what it does is it generates a topic for each of these 6 sections and then a description of how that topic is going to be taught. And it's fully editable.
Oh,
So if
cool.
there's a topic, yeah, if there's a topic here that I feel like is extraneous, and then I just take it out. Or if there's a topic that I feel like is missing, then I can add a different topic. Or if I want to change how something's taught, like I could hop in and say, maybe in practicing powder skiing, I could say using an example story of a beginning skier who did the wrong thing.
Right.
Get familiar with get familiar with um, how to ski. Maybe I just say common pitfalls
Yeah. Be interesting
in
to see what
skiing.
Mindsmith does with that.
Yeah, in skiing powder. So something like that. So maybe I want to change the topic as well to um, powder skiing pitfalls.
See, I could actually speak to this particular issue verbatim based on personal experience. Generally, how not to ski across the piece. Doesn't matter actually what condition the snow is in. I have a nightmare on the slopes, and I promise never to go back. Oh dear.
Yeah, yeah, that's okay. You know, everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. My wife and I were skiing this last week, and as you know, like in very beginning skiing, they teach you like the pizza versus the French fries. But the pizza to stop doesn't quite work when you're on the more advanced
No,
routes.
and
And so
I can
we
attest to that as well.
yeah, we were going up the lift and we saw these two people coming down, and it was one poor girl that was trying to pizza on these like really steep moguls, and we're like, I hope she makes it down okay, because that is not, you know,
Not
she's gonna
fun.
either wreck her knees, you know, or fall down the mountain. So
Spot on. Absolutely.
hopefully she's all right.
That's what you do. That's what I did.
Yeah. Yeah, so pizzaing down the steep moguls is maybe it'll bring that up here. We'll see. Um,
So,
but
so
yeah,
this
you
is
can see
actually
here.
this is the training.
Yeah, so this is the lesson itself. This is our authoring tool. So this is all the editing functions and all the building happens in this screen. So yeah, you can see here it generated kind of a title for the lesson. It brought in my default logo. This was my default theme. Um, Looks like it gave an introduction kind of overview of what the lesson will be. Understanding powder snow, adapting skiing techniques to powder snow, stance and balance, selecting the right equipment, avoiding
So
common
you
powder
didn't
pitfalls.
reference any documentation to do this.
No, for this one I didn't. So we don't get to showcase the documents,
No, but
but
I mean, I think what you're showcasing here is that this thing went out to the universe and gathered up all the information there was to know about skiing and powder and made sense of it.
yeah. Yeah, so it did a really good job of kind of pulling from its wider knowledge.
Right.
Um, yeah, and building this lesson. So yeah, you can see here it generated some of these pitfalls that we asked for it to talk about, leaning back, overturning, and not enough speed. So some really cool stuff here. But let's say like in leaning back, I'm like, it's only a few sentences. I wish there was more content on leaning back. Like I want to do a deeper dive into leaning back.
Yeah, I found that a little bit too. I was sort of like, yeah, I kind of wanted to kind of get a little deeper into it. So tell me there's a magic button for that.
There is. It's right here, actually. It's our AI assistant. Um, so the AI assistant is cool because it will edit and help you fine tune the lesson after it's generated based
Right.
on these additional prompts that you give it. So the idea is that that initial generation gets you like maybe 80 to 85% of the way there. It's really solid bones for a lesson, but like we were talking about before, like it can't like fully read your mind. Like it can do a pretty
Yeah.
good job
Yeah.
of like following your structure, but
Yeah.
you're still going to want to edit and tweak things. So I could hop in here and I could say regenerate this card, do a deeper dive into leaning back, why that would happen, how that would happen, whatever. And it'll regenerate this card. It'll still take into account all of the context that it already has. So the documents, the background information, but it will regenerate this card. Um, I can also, if I'd like, regenerate a section or the entire lesson. So maybe I want to do a deeper dive on all the cards. I could say, I want to do a deeper dive into each of these concepts, regenerate all the cards with more content about what they're trying to teach. So it
Amazing.
can be a really powerful tool here. Or we also will have people like maybe they'll forget to generate within the context of MasterCard or whatever. They'll say, regenerate this lesson in the context of MasterCard, and it'll do a good job of regenerating
Cool.
the teaching under this additional prompt. So really powerful tool there as you're kind of building and fine tuning and tweaking. Um, aside from that, we're a full-fledged authoring tool. So aside from all the AI stuff, there's just a lot of additional features that make us kind of a next gen tool. We have text to speech audio narration that's really cool and powerful.
Ooh, you
We
didn't tell me about
actually
that,
yeah. Yeah. So this is a really cool tool. We're merging it. So today we're adding the OpenAI voices. So anyone with a pro account will have the OpenAI voices, which I actually really like. I like them better than our current voices.
right?
But yeah, it'll narrate the card, or if you want to change the text, you can. So you can have it narrate whatever you want it to do. Um, which can be really helpful for learners as they're kind of listening as well as reading the text on the screen.
Yeah, that's super useful. Absolutely. I mean, because it's weird how it's probably not weird. It's probably well studied and understood, but how the human brain works and how each of our brains, frankly, kind of
Mm,
absorb knowledge. And I only got this from playing a lot on my iPhone with different modes um, of information sharing. So, I've got like the Apple News, for instance, and you can go and read a bunch of that stuff. But I find like my brain just gets tired of
mm.
reading extensive articles, coming from like Forbes or The Economist or, whatever,
Yeah.
New York Times. And I'm like, oh my God, enough already. And I just want to click a button that says, just read this to me. You know what I mean? I want to go do five other things right now. And I just have
Right.
this playing in the background. So this is really super important. And to kind of create the different modalities of transferring the knowledge, whether it be sort
Mhm.
of, pictures or videos, or I'm not saying you necessarily do that per se yet, but the narration, and then the structuring of it is all super important to make sure that the information actually, because it's more, it's this will easily, crush your limit in terms of short-term memory. So the question then
Right.
begs is how do you get it to attach to stuff in the brain so it
Right.
can hang in there? And then, as you're kind of pulling in other things, more stuff can kind of be added and stuck. So that's the magic of it. This is cool.
Yeah. Yeah. The AI audio can be super helpful. It's also really expensive to record audio, or
Yeah, it
like
is.
it can either be expensive if you're hiring a voice actor, or if you're doing it yourself, then it's just like really clunky and hard. So
Right.
yeah, having the AI voices, especially since AI voices have come so far in the last like year or so, like really cool tool there. So yeah, that's kind of cool. You can add your images, of course.
So where do
Each
you get them from? Because
card
you pull from Dali, right?
for the
Using
images.
GPT-4. Yeah, the images that it pulled up there.
Great question. Yeah, these images are actually pulled from the web. So we do a Bing, we generate, we using AI, we generate a search in Bing and then pull the image that matches that search the best.
Got it.
Um, yeah, and then we're, like I said, we're adding Dolly here in the next week or so.
Oh, I see. Okay, cool. Cool.
But you can also, we do also integrate with, so you can upload directly from your computer. You can generate an image. So we integrated back in the day, it was like 6 months ago with
AI is
AI image
changing
generation has
everything.
changed a lot in the last 6 months. So we do integrate
That's
with
funny.
Stable Diffusion. So you can generate kind of basic images here with prompts.
Yeah.
But also Unsplash and Giphy we integrate with, or you can
Oh,
search
cool.
directly if you'd like. Yeah, so that can be really helpful. You can change the layout of the images, which can be fun.
Nice.
Uh, yeah. So aside from that, we have tons of features here in the authoring tool itself. So we have flashcards, so fun interactive game. Well,
Cool.
it's not really a game, but it can be super
But it is
interactive.
game. It's
Learner.
gamified, right? So it makes it fun, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have these accordions, that kind of help with a little bit more interactivity as well. We have we have a sorting game. It's a drag and drop sorting game. This actually gets generated in the instructions generator. So that can be really fun and it creates these drag and drop category games. We also have hot buttons that are super helpful for teaching like software or things like that, where you upload an image and then the learner can click on these hot buttons and get further context on the different places in the image.
Smart.
Um, yeah, we have other stuff. So questions, we have a matching style question that can be really fun. That's drag and drop as well. A short answer that uses AI to grade the answer that the learner gives. We also have multimedia, so you can embed things directly into Mindsmith. So if you have a YouTube video or Vimeo or Google Form or whatever, you can embed it. You can also upload video directly from your computer, link to outside reading. We can also
Oh,
host
great.
like PDFs and things like that if you want them to like read a full article or something.
That's
Um,
great. Because then it properly is multimodal. I mean, the whole thing, you know what I mean? It's talking
Yeah,
to you
yeah.
about
So
it.
we all types of media, yeah, you can use to teach here on Mindsmith. We don't like generate video, right? Quite yet.
Right.
Like AI isn't there. But hopefully in the future, yeah, it'll be all of these different types of learning will be generated by that generator
It was funny.
initially.
I was listening to Sam Altman basically speak to I think it was I can't remember exactly who it was he was speaking with. And Bill, I was sorry, it's Bill Gates. That's who it was. How do I forget Bill Gates? Unbelievable. Anyway, and Sam was talking about what's coming next in GPT-5. And
Mm,
basically one of the things he said, well, he said this so casually. Well, of course it's going to be multimodal. Just similar to Google's Gemini, and everything else. And he's like, basically, you'll be able to kind of, do text to video, like all these kind of like parlor tricks that are currently being done. I shouldn't call them parlor tricks; they're pretty cool. But all these apps that people have built kind of do, very similar kinds of things. This is all now going to be native to GPT-5 when it finally comes out. So it'll just take GPT-4 and just put it on steroids yet again,
right.
as it did with 3. So yeah, this is going to be amazing.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of cool stuff coming. Just it's fun to be on the bleeding edge of the AI technology because
Yeah,
as soon as something comes out, we can immediately incorporate it into what we're doing and what we're building.
so
Um,
cool.
yeah, we're also working on like multimodal input, so the AI, conceptualizing and understanding like infographics and charts that are in the documents that you upload, which will be really helpful as well, and sort of providing as much context to the AI as possible.
Nice.
Um, yeah, so that's kind of the basics there. We've also innovated some really cool stuff like in the e-learning industry itself. So, like your traditional SCORM package, which is the way like I mentioned before, you connect the authoring tool to the LMS. It's
Mhm.
just a static file. Like any other authoring tool, it's just going to be like this file that you upload to the LMS. And the file can be huge because it has all these videos and images and interactive elements. So it could be like 2 GB large and take 2.5 hours to upload, right? Which
Right.
is like a huge headache. So what we did is we hosted the file on the cloud, which actually really changed the game in a bunch of ways. The first is that it just takes seconds to upload instead of hours. The second is that it's now a dynamic file. So when you change something in Mindsmith, it updates in the LMS automatically.
How clever.
So yeah, whereas with other tools, you have to delete it from the LMS,
Yep.
change it in your authoring tool, re-download it, and then re-upload it to the
Now the
LMS.
version control is a nightmare. You spend half a day just doing that silly stuff. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, so we just make all of that automatic. You can also create different versions of the same lesson within one file. So
Right.
I can actually add these languages. Like I can add the Spanish version of this lesson and upload just one SCORM file into the LMS. And what happens is the file itself will read the device language of the learner. So if their phone's in Spanish, it'll just give them the Spanish version of the lesson automatically.
Gosh, that's
Yeah,
clever.
whereas with other tools, you have to have your English file and then you have to create a separate Spanish file. And usually they don't have a native AI translation. So you have to do all of that manually. You have to recreate everything. And then you have to, and then the LMS admin has to pick like who gets the Spanish and who gets the English, which is just like insane how clunky that is. Like, let's just
Horrible.
make it all dynamic and easy in the background. The other cool thing, and we haven't done this quite yet, but when we do bring AI to the learner,
Hmm.
we can actually do that in the SCORM file. So if it's just a static file, like there's no way for AI to interact with the learner at all, right?
Right.
But now we can do API calls to the file directly. So the learner can interact in real time to an adaptive, lesson that is using AI to provide content. So a
Really?
lot of cool stuff there as we continue to build because we've kind of been built from the ground up. We can solve these problems that should have been solved, a decade ago, um, in like
But
a
yeah,
really
you have
cool
like
way.
you have no architecture or technical debt, holding you
Right.
back. That, and you don't have necessarily millions of customers that you already, your tools already kind of embedded in. So it would be a nightmare
Exactly.
to kind of unwind all that. It's fascinating. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of really cool stuff that we can do just to make e-learning authoring more elegant and kind of bringing it into the next generation.
Nice.
Um, yeah. So that's pretty much it. I mean, we can also do more tracking and analytics than your typical SCORM package, which is
Oh, that's
fun.
good.
You can send like comment links to your colleagues and they don't have to like create an account to make comments. You can send review links, which can be really helpful in collaboration.
Super.
Um, yeah, we're also working through a new editor. I don't know, it's kind of in super beta right now, but it's hidden right here.
Would
Uh,
super beta actually be alpha then possibly, or is it just beyond alpha, but not
I
quite
don't
beta?
know. Who knows? It's vague. Sure, we'll call it alpha, but
Yeah, sure.
it's really cool. It's actually provides a lot more versatility to our learning designers. So it's this tile view that's really neat. You've played with Tome. It's
Right.
really similar to Tome where you can kind of add all these like different interactive elements. Like I can add a flashcard tile to this page and I can, have multiple different types of interactivity within this same page. And I can also like create things that are way more beautiful. So right now it's a very structured, like the text goes in a certain place and images go on a certain place and maybe you have a few options for images, but this really opens up, and I hate this default image we chose, but it really opens up the design element of Mindsmith where I can now, bring this text here on the side and I can, turn it into a heading maybe, and then I want to talk about trees here as paragraph text, and I can make this larger. So just like as we're
It's
designing and
very
building
intuitive.
Mindsmith,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
like super intuitive, which is what I like. Like you were just clicking and dragging and dropping and just, click on a box and the menu thing opens up at the top. And I mean, without any instruction whatsoever, I played with your app, this morning, and I was basically able to kind of create a course, which I thought was really quite cool. I mean, if I could just kind of like share my screen real quick, this is basically what popped up is, because I haven't quite paid for it yet, and I will do, of course, but I just wanted to play with the free version of it. And similar to what you just went through, I picked a topic. It was like teaching AI, or how to incorporate AI technologies in HR into the function, and I kind of put some basic, not a lot of instruction in here, in terms of who I was going to be speaking with and what the tone ought to be. these were like I said, I only had 4 website links that I popped in there, made a couple of adjustments in terms of length, and I said it was going to be instructive. I could have put all sorts of stuff in there. It's going to use GPT-4 and it's going to use images from all over. And then boom, click the button. Here comes my outline. And like I said, like the websites I shared broadly, had AI in HR as a theme, but they were all talking about very, very different things. And I was worried I was going to blow up the machine, right? And then I opened the lesson, which is this window, and boom, I'm suddenly into this presentation with very cool pictures. And I was just thinking to myself as I'm going through it, and there's not a lot of content. And I was thinking, oh gosh, okay, I could probably use a button, which you've now showed me, to kind of flesh some of this stuff out. But it put this together in a very, very capable way that I was even surprised at how easily it was to follow. You know what I mean? And I was like, wow, this actually made sense of all the gobbledygook in my head, from reading all these articles and trying to make sense of it. So yeah. And then, and then here's the cool stuff you can do, kind of boom, check on that. Hey, I win, that kind of thing. And it was fun. And I was really rather impressed by it all. And I feel like that's going to be the wave of so many things in the HR sector, as an example, but obviously across every aspect, every function of every company, whereby we were dragged down by this painful slog of thinking through the content, the build, the administration. How many people am I going to have to collaborate with this? And then I've got this like ugly software from like 1982, which wasn't even a thing. But it's like, it's like daunting and soul destroying simultaneously. And it just makes you want to run away from the thing. But of course, we all had to earn a paycheck. And so we got to like slog it out and see if we can put it together. We're now able to do in what used to take arguably 20 days and God knows how much money with a bunch of collaborators who knew what they were doing. Right. So I'm being generous. We can now do that in the space arguably of 30 minutes to say a couple of hours worst case, right? Because you're going to collaborate and share the presentation with a couple of people. You just want their input on it, kick it around, but it never loses its form. It doesn't lose its architecture or the way it's structured. So you're playing in real time, with the app, and everybody's able to see what's happening with it. And then to your point about the genius and being able to upload it to your cloud, oh my God, I remember the first time I ever did like a 20-page or 20 slide deck. And I recorded myself back in, when Microsoft, pre-AI, recorded myself going through each slide, kind of thing, and then tried to upload it to the person who was then going to publish it on LinkedIn. It took us a week. It took us a week of playing with different modalities and trying to figure out what tool potentially could act as a third party to live in the cloud, so I could take my stuff from my desktop and upload it here so then they could access it over here. I think I paid for 2 separate subscriptions to tools that I don't think I've ever used again. Ridiculous the amount of inefficiency and pain and suffering, when frankly what you want to allow people to do is to focus on the genius that's up here, the experience, the scar tissue, the wisdom. And that's what you want to spend time extracting and putting into a beautiful form. And let the machines do all the hard stuff, all the heavy lifting, right?
Yeah,
So,
I would say like all the grunt work. Like we're not taking away instructional designers' jobs. We're elevating their jobs to like the more interesting part of their jobs.
Well, and and that is the theme over and over again, right? Which is what I'm actually, part of my consultancy is exactly that. As I'm helping educate, these teams around what is this AI stuff, and this is part of that process. So again, being part of this educational process, it's then sort of a SWOT analysis as to like, where are you in terms of your current tech stack and your assessment, where are things going and what your gap looks like and all that kind of stuff. But then the most important part of that conversation is, what are you going to go do now? Right? AI is going to take care of all this junk for you, right? That you hated anyway and bitched and moaned about, never wanted to do again. And it's now going to give you the freedom to really kind of rise above and to kind of be much more strategic in your thinking, so you can, kind of just change the relationship you have with managers, with your employees, and say, I am here for you in a very, very different way, in a very real way. I am the human in the loop, and I'm going to be the best damn human in the loop you've ever had, because this is what I've always ever wanted in my career. I was never able to get it because I was stuck in the weeds doing this stuff, but I got machines for that now.
Right.
Yeah, dead cool, dude. Dead cool. This is really interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah, I'm happy to. It was fun. This was fun doing this overview. It was great.
Good, 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 good. Well, this won't be the last time we speak, because it sounds like you've got all sorts of additional bits of pixie dust magic and God knows what going into the big old box, that is Mindsmith, and I can't wait to see. For one, obviously, I'm going to get myself a paid subscription, and I can't wait to see, because I have plans to kick out all sorts of training, because there's just a lot to get out there, and it's important that it comes out in an organized way, not the way I would have done it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
thank you for putting this tool together.
for sure. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was great. It was great chatting, Jeff.
All
Appreciate
right,
it.
cool, man. All right, we'll be in touch.
Yeah, for sure. See you
All
later.
right, thanks everybody.
Bye.
Bye.